Yeah. What happened was that I think during my fellowship and as part of the MPH at Harvard School of Public Health, I had the opportunity to cross-register for a number of classes at MIT. And at MIT, I took a course in chaos theory and nonlinear dynamics. Um, I was just fascinated by chaos theory because it just sounded cool.
Yeah.
And I think at that time there was a book, I forgot, by Gleek, I think, that sort of talked about chaos theory.
Just
And
remind our listener about Chaos Theory 101.
yeah, oh my goodness. So chaos theory, it came out, actually, a lot of it came out of Lawrence by MIT, who was an MIT professor who tried to understand sort of the properties of sort of natural systems. He was specifically interested in the weather, and he studied. He had this sort of mathematical representation of what could happen in certain weather conditions. Like where you have pressure then leads to temperature changes, etc. And it was a three equation problem. And he found out, interestingly, that out of this very simple three equation problem, you could see some very unusual dynamic characteristics that, as you, put on the computer, you could see that it had these very interesting patterns. First of all, it has what's called sensitivity to initial conditions. So if you, for instance, it's the idea of a butterfly effect, right? If you change the initial conditions just a little bit, those initial conditions then subsequently, it could be, 0.0001 in the difference in the temperature of this representation of the weather. And that 0.00001 difference in the temperature would magnify over time so that by the time, like, maybe minutes afterwards, the system would look completely different than the one that was just, almost nearly identical, but was just a little off. And then the other thing that they found out was that there was sort of this idea of attractors that this system has this ability to, while have, like diverge a lot, they would still sort of come together at this very similar pattern. And it has like this butterfly appearance when you do sort of this phase plot. When you combine those things, the chaos theory was understanding that out of very simple systems, you could get very complex patterns. And the reason you get complex patterns is that you have feedback loops within it so that you have iterations. So one thing subsequently affects the other, and then that iteration is nonlinear. So it's not like one, if you double it for one variable, it doesn't necessarily double another variable. In fact, it could be exponential or it could be minute. And as a result of that, you have these very complex patterns. And so that was sort of the idea. This idea of chaos theory is basically very complex patterns coming from a very simple system. For me, I was very interested in, at that time, what was complexity theory. This idea that you get a lot of sort of very interesting patterns based on multiple parts, like a very complex system interacting with each other in a nonlinear way. You could think of sort of the genetic network, or you could think of the protein network. There are many, many different pieces. They are interacting with each other, much of it nonlinear in a nonlinear way. And out of that manifests some very interesting patterns. And so that's kind of how I got interested, because I felt that system, this chaos theory, partly, but also complexity theory, was capturing some of the things that traditional Chinese medicine and also other ancient medical therapies were discussing about the idea of balance, the idea of fractals, the idea, for instance, that the ear could represent the whole body, or the foot, the reflexology could represent the whole body. All these things actually came out of sort of complexity and chaos theory. So
I
yeah,
mean,
that's why I was really interested.